Hey guys, it's Tasim Lokman from Sinar Daily, and you're watching Top News Podcast live. And right now, I'm with political analyst from Sabah, Dr. Oi San.
Yeah, nice. Talking to all of you. Thanks for having me here.
All right, I'm so excited because we're going to be talking about Sabah. It's a countdown to the state elections. It can happen anytime soon.
Indeed.
Maximum, the last day, I think
Well, I
December
think by the 11th of November,
11th of
it will
November.
automatically dissolve. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so
So after that, I mean, assuming it is automatically dissolved, then you have till almost like the end of the year to
yeah.
have an election. Yeah.
But I mean, time passes really fast right now,
Yes,
right?
indeed. It's already August.
I
Yeah,
know, and it's
yeah.
already mid-August.
Yes.
So, okay, so we're going to be talking about the state elections expectations, corruption cases, controversies, and of course, what's at stake for the government, federal government, and also state government. So, let's just be clear. A few days ago, I think, maybe, it was officially announced that 23 political parties have been registered and are eligible to contest in the Sabah
Yes.
state
Yes.
elections. 23.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Well, yeah, because it's personalities politics, right? In Sabah in particular, but Malaysia in general.
Yes.
So you have all these political personalities. They would like to have their own parties, right?
Yes.
They would not like to be under another leader, because when you are forming, let's say nowadays, very fashionable to form coalition government, right? When you're forming a coalition government, if you're head of a party,
Yes.
they can bargain for a ministerial position, right?
Yes.
Whereas if you are just, I don't know, maybe secgen or organizing secretary in the party, they say, you become deputy minister or assistant minister. So that's why everybody want to have their own party nowadays. Yeah.
But like, how would it impact like the fragmentation? Is there going to be an extreme effect of, fragmented states?
Oh yeah, I mean it's already a fragmented
Now, right?
situation now, right?
Yeah.
Whereby most of these parties they each have a few seats.
Yeah.
Those with more seats maybe 10, 20 and so on. Those with fewer seats maybe even 3 or 5. So they all try to form ruling coalitions
Yes.
in order to be part of government. Yeah.
So, what's your take for Sabah? Is 23 too much for the people?
Well, on the one hand, it's a sign of, shall we say, the vibrancy of democracy,
Yeah.
right? They have all the different parties joining the election and so on. On the other hand, of course, then it's very difficult to have, shall we say, coherent policy for the
Yes.
state, right? Because each of these party, of course, they will look after their own interests
Yes.
and not quite, let's say, the interests of the whole state.
Do you
Yeah.
see that in Sabah right now with the current state government? Do you see that like
Well, the state government, they have this so-called Sabah Maju Jaya, I would call them slogan,
Okay.
right? But of course, the state still struggles a lot from infrastructural difficulties. I mean, stable electricity, stable water supply, well-paved roads and so on. It's still very hard to come by. Yeah.
okay? So do you think there's going to be any changes or any different promises in the
Well, of
coming
course, in the run-ups to the next state elections, various parties, they will make, shall we say, very outlandish promises, right? But, well, you need, to be blunt about it, you need money to deliver those promises, to build more roads, to have, to build dams or to have more power generations and so on. All this
Yeah.
needs money. And then there's this sort of tension between the state and the federal level,
Okay.
over money or revenues,
Yeah.
right? So, that's going to go on regardless of who is going to form the next state government.
Okay,
Yeah.
but then we have to talk about the alleged corruption cases involving the aduns, right? The state assemblymen, and only 2 have been charged.
Charged,
Yeah,
yeah.
but like there's so many allegedly more.
yeah.
So like this is not new. Every few years mesti ada huge corruption cases and outbreaks.
Well, this is what I would call, I think, in political science terms, resource curse.
Okay.
Because Sabah, it's so blessed with so many resources,
Yes.
natural resources mostly.
Yeah.
Anything from, minerals to, let's say, timber and so on.
Yeah.
So it's very tempting for anybody who is the power that be to so-called dip their hands in the cookies jar,
Yes.
right? And sometimes you get caught,
Yeah.
and in this case, on video, right?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
So do you think people will be more like, this time around, people will be more like waiting for accountability from the people?
I would
I mean,
like
the people
to,
want more accountability from
I
politicians.
would like to see that, and I think at least in the more urban areas of Sabah,
Okay.
you have people who are voicing out their displeasures, trying to have more accountable governments and elected representatives and
Yeah.
so on. But let us not forget Sabah, it's also a very vast state, right?
Yes.
And in the more rural areas, it's still the struggles with daily livelihoods. So any politicians who can, shall we say, dangle
Yeah.
some, even though very minuscule rewards or some goodies,
Okay.
there are a lot of people who can be quite tempted, simply because they have very harsh livelihoods. You know, we have to sort of empathize with that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we're looking into BNPH and GRS Corporation. I think they've agreed that they will be working together.
Well, I think it's in a very confusing setup because
I agree.
if I understand it correctly, PH is with GRS.
Yes.
But PH is also with BN.
yes.
But GRS and BN cannot work with each other.
Yeah.
So how does this work? I mean, so PH is essentially riding on two different horses
Yes.
on different directions. So I don't know. That reminds me of some movies like Ben-Hur or something. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how do you think? Okay, so you already stated that it'll be like a confusing situation.
Yeah.
But like, how do you think they would actually avoid vote splitting in this way?
Well, I think those seats where, let's say, PH could agree with GRS or PH could agree with BN not
Yeah.
to overlap, they will not overlap. But let's say between GRS
Yeah.
and BN,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think they will be overlapping. In fact, quite a number overlapping. Then it's so-called the best person wins. Then.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
do
yeah.
you think GRS and BN would be competing against each other?
I think there will be some seats which are overlapping, primarily in the more rural seats, especially. And let us not forget, in Sabah state elections especially, usually there will be a lot of these independents as well.
Yes.
Well, to call them independents are actually a misnomer because they are actually sponsored by certain parties
To
and
break
so
the
on.
votes.
Yeah, to
Okay.
number one, break the votes, and sometimes they do win. You know.
Yeah.
Every election there must be at least one or two who
Who
win.
wins, yeah.
So well, then they also become quite quite a commodity because all this coalition would need seats,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Okay, so they would become a commodity to enter the parties, right?
Yeah, then they will start demanding, hey, how about making me a minister,
yeah,
and
yeah.
so on. Yeah.
Okay. From the last state election, right?
Uh-huh.
Which happened like about 2020. I think it was COVID, during COVID.
2020 during COVID.
Yeah, during COVID.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now it's 5 years now.
Uh-huh.
Do you think there's any differences between what's going to happen then and now? Because, that was totally a different situation. We
That's
were
right.
under a different
Yeah,
government.
yeah.
If we're in coalition, we're in corporation.
Well, at that time, it was federally under the Muhyiddin administration,
Yes.
with Bersatu sort of leading the government, shall we say. Therefore, a lot of these elected representatives who are, for example, now under GRS, or especially under PGRS, they were elected under Bersatu's ticket.
Yeah.
So now, in fact, for the first time, they will be testing out. I mean, the Hajiji's party,
Yes.
the PGRS, it will have to test its mantle,
Okay.
whether independent or Bersatu,
Okay.
they will still win, well, quite a number of seats. I don't think they will win a majority, but perhaps some number of seats.
Okay.
And of course, Bersatu is not very pleased about that,
Yeah.
right? That's why you see PN, it's
Yes.
also entering the Sabah's
Yes.
state election.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do you think there will be So, right now, since GRS is with PH,
That's right.
we won't be seeing the previous teams, right? From the 2020 state election?
Well, PH, I think, will still try to come out in most of those urban and suburban seats,
Okay.
let's say around KK, around Sandakan or Tawau,
Yeah.
and so on. But what is in contention primarily are those, shall we say, the more rural seats
Yeah.
where you will see, for example, 3, 4, 5 corners
Yeah.
fights. Yeah.
Okay. And okay, one thing that's really big happening right now is the case of Zara Qairina Mahathir and everything that's happened since. Like the involvement of potential VIPs and alleged VIP children and the whole inquest and everything, the injustice and stuff. So how do you think this case could shift the voters' sentiment towards?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course, there have been a lot of, shall we say, some mild forms of demonstrations,
Yeah.
pockets of demonstrations, public demonstrations in the various, again, the urban areas
Yeah.
of Sabah, and it perpetuates also even to Malaya here, to
Yeah.
West Malaysia. And people felt that. The justice has not been speedily and readily and judiciously delivered
Yeah.
to Zara, right?
Yes.
And therefore people are angry. And whether this sort of anger will then be channeled politically as to, for example, influencing the result of state elections, I think because it's so close,
Yeah.
it's going to make an impact.
Yeah.
Well, the allegations are, of course, wide-ranging,
Yes.
ranging from various VVIP involvements and so
Police
on.
and-
Yeah. Well, people as people,
Yes.
some of this may sink in, right? Some of
Yes.
these allegations, and therefore they might, it might, number one, reinforce their predilections. I mean, whether they would like to vote for one side or the other. And number two, even if they are sort of standing on the fence, they might be swayed to vote for a certain side instead of for another side. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? I was wondering, like, there's a lot of Sabahans that stay in KL, right?
Of course.
I mean, not just KL, in the West.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people like yourself.
Yeah, of course.
But do you think there will be what's the voters turnout right now based on the current situation and current emotions at stake right now? What's your take on the voters turnout?
Well, Sabah state election, typically voter turnouts would be at least 60,
Okay.
very often 65 to 70%. And let us not forget, of course, now we have 18 years old who could
Yes,
vote, right?
yes.
I mean, so that's also a cohort of voters to look at how, for example, like Zara, for example, is a young teenager,
Yes.
right? And of course, well, being teenagers, they would empathize
Yes, the younger people.
Yeah, with her fate. So how they would vote, I think, would also be something to look out for, yeah.
Okay, so the Zara case will most likely affect.
Oh yeah, I think it will have an effect. That's why you see politicians from across the political divide, across the political spectrum, all scramble to either meet Zara's relatives or to do certain things
Certain things
about
to
it, to
support the
issue some
situation.
statements,
Yeah.
because they felt that this is going to have an impact
Okay.
on the election, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I just wanna just go a little bit to Datuk Sri Najib Razak. We're talking
Yeah.
about Sabah.
Yeah.
And he's not in Sabah, he's
Yeah,
in jail
yeah,
right now.
yeah.
But after the recent case, I think yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yeah, there was an appeal
that-
case, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of word has it that he'll be out by September.
Yeah, September or November, it's latest by November
Yes,
is what I heard.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
this is
yeah.
not us saying it. This is
Yeah,
all like
Yeah,
rumors,
yeah.
public talking.
Yeah,
Yeah, we understand this. So what's your take on that and on the impact of Sabah election?
Well, number one, Najib is likely to be out by next year this time because by that time he will have served about 4 years in jail.
Okay.
And assuming he behaves himself
Parole.
with 1/3 remission, right?
Yes.
So in theory he could be out
Wow.
by legally by next year this time,
In
right?
time for elections, GE?
Perhaps no, but he has 5 years ban from
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
from
But it doesn't matter.
election.
He can-
That's right.
he can
He can still
campaign.
campaign and
Yeah.
so on. Well, if it does come out before the Sabah state election, well, the question then becomes which side he will campaign for.
Yes.
If he campaigns for UMNO, his beloved party, well, that could have some impact on UMNO's chances in Sabah.
Okay.
UMNO is BN, right?
Yes.
And BN is not exactly friends with the ruling GRS in Sabah.
Yes.
But the ruling GRS in Sabah is very friendly with the federal
Government right now.
government led by PH.
Yes.
So it'll be a very interesting dynamic going on, right?
Yes.
I mean, Najib is part of UMNO.
Yes.
UMNO is an integral part of the federal government.
Yes.
And the federal government supposedly friendly to GRS, but GRS not friendly to
the
UMNO, or BN.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and assuming he campaigns for BN, wow, then...
Do you think
exciting,
whoever Najib campaigns for will definitely win?
Well, you of course can't say that because number one, he's from West Malaysia,
Yes.
right? He might have a pronounced effect as he did, I think, in 2021 or 2022 in, let's say, Malacca and Johor.
Yes,
He did have a
yes.
very pronounced effect, letting UMNO win
The victory
quite a
was
number
in
of
Johor
seats.
was incredible.
It's overwhelming,
Yeah.
right? But that's, Malaya, West
Yes,
Malaysia.
yes.
In Sabah, he might have an impact, assuming he still campaigns vigorously for BN. I don't know, because I'm not sure how the federal government would see this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And even without Najib, it's strange enough. With the
Yeah.
Najib element into this
Yeah.
equation,
Yes.
it's just going to stir up, even more excitement.
But
yeah.
generally,
Uh-huh.
what's the Sabah's people feelings towards Najib? Sentiments towards Najib?
Frankly speaking, nowadays, I think throughout Malaysia, Sabah included, because livelihood is not as easy as before. So it's very natural for people to so-called hark back to the good old days, right?
Yes.
People will say, oh, during Najib's days, life was better and so on. So in that sense, he could have a pronounced positive effect onto whichever side he is campaigning for, in that sense, including in Sabah.
Okay.
But I think the effect may not be as pronounced as here in West Malaysia.
Okay, all right. But good news for the politicians for Najib to come out?
Well, it depends on how you define good news.
Not so good for Zahid, actually, is it?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, of course, in general, it's good for UMNO, right?
Okay.
There's somebody with all the Bosco effect and
Yes.
so on. But of course, you need to look at the internal dynamics of UMNO, right? Oh, Najib, it's out. That means Najib could be in charge again.
Yes.
Then those who are currently in charge may or may not be happy
Okay.
about that, right? Very often, in my experience of observing politics for so many years, what's going on inside a particular party is far more intense, far more exciting than, let's say, this party A against party B.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so could you tell us, spill some tea about what's happening in UMNO right now?
Well, I don't have some sort of insight
Okay.
into UMNO, but of course, as in any other political party, you have sort of a cascading effect,
Yes.
right? When one leader left, another leader replacing him, then the second tier, third tier would then move up, right?
Yeah.
But then if the former leader came up, then how
It's
do you
still
move
stuck
up
there,
then?
right?
Even if, let's say, Zahid, it's a
Okay.
very nice person, say, I
Okay.
don't mind,
Uh-huh.
I can take a back seat and so on. But how about people below Zahid, right? They
Right.
will still want to move up,
up,
right?
yes.
And then that would be pitched against Najib's people who
Yes.
say, hey, boss is back. I want to be back too, right?
Yes.
So how do those dynamics play out? I think will be very interesting. Just in UMNO, we are not even talking about
The other political
the
parties,
other-
yeah?
uh-huh.
Yeah, we haven't even touched on PKR yet.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's another can of worms.
You know what?
Yeah.
Because I haven't met you for the
Yeah.
longest time, I want to
Yes.
ask you about PKR punya results, especially the deputy presidency. What's your take on the Izzah versus Rafizi?
Yeah, I was a bit surprised that the winning margin of Nurul Izzah was apparently quite huge, right? I thought, yes, she would squeeze by, but
Okay.
perhaps with a thin
Thin,
margin.
okay.
But because I think in the parliamentary election, she didn't win her seats and
Yeah.
so on. So a lot of people said, well, that sort of dimmed her prospects a little bit.
Okay.
But apparently, at least within her party, she's still quite popular.
Popular.
Of course, there's a father effect.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Definitely.
and so on. But I think PKR, of course, has a I think deeper problem.
Okay.
Number one, the PKR has a lot of different factions, right? And that's from the very beginning of PKR because it's a lot of these NGO people, social activists, disgruntled politicians all come together.
Yes.
Of course, they have their different cliques or factions, right?
Yes.
Number two, of course, well, the party president, our beloved Anwar Ibrahim, sometimes he's despite their differences, Mahathir, Dr. Mahathir and Anwar Ibrahim, they are quite similar in the sense that they don't quite tolerate their number two within the party.
Okay.
Remember Dr. Mahathir with Musa Hitam,
Yes.
and then Anwar himself,
yeah.
and so on, and then Abdullah Badawi and
Yes.
Najib. Very similar to Anwar, right? Could not tolerate Asmin Ali, and then
Yes.
now
Rafizi.
Rafizi. I'm not sure, even with the daughter, if I don't know whether they will, well, hopefully they will still get along and so on, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. But do you think all these items that's happening in PKR, because it was quite controversial, right, during the elections, even in Sabah alone, it was quite controversial as well. Like, do you think that would have any effects on the support on the ground, the grassroots of PKR and PH?
I think in Peninsular Malaysia, it will have a very pronounced effect because PKR supporters here, they have their different camps and so on, right? Some still support Rafizi, some stay loyal to Anwar. In Sabah, frankly speaking, PKR, I think there are
You look so upset, disappointed
well,
with
there
the
are
PKR.
many factions.
Okay.
I'm not sure even which or what is more aligned to Anwar, to Rafizi, and so on. So they need to sort of sort out who is a proper or what is a proper and powerful leadership in Sabah before they can talk about
Elections.
election.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean there are. I think in some urban seats, people will still vote for PKR and so on, but in the more rural seats, they really need to work very hard.
But based on reports, so Saifuddin Nasution and Nur Izzah are in charge of the election plans. And Saifuddin has spoken out about it already for Sabah. Do you think, since you're saying that you don't even know what's happening on the ground, right, at the grassroots level, do you think there's a lot of work for PKR to do?
I think so. Within the next 1.5 months, they better, put up
start.
their order and so on, because I don't know, because I think traditionally they did very well in these suburban seats, urban seats, and so on. So in the more rural seats, they perhaps need to put in more work.
Why are the rural seats important?
Well, because there are many of them.
Yeah?
I think
More than the urban areas?
Yeah, out of 73 seats, I think maybe 2/3 are rural.
Yes.
So yeah, you do need them to win your state government. Yeah.
But that would be more of UMNO's. Would you say that's more of BN
UMNO or
UMNO's?
GRS or Warisan, all these different
I wanted to
parties.
ask you about Warisan.
Yeah.
Dato' Sri Shafi Abdul said that they will contest all seats.
Yes.
What's your take on that? Does Warisan have it in them to fight against PH, UMNO, GRS?
Well, they will still win quite a number of seats. Whether that number it's more than half, I think that is the question. Frankly speaking, I think it's a bit tough to win an outright majority in the state assembly. So at the end of the day, you still need to put together a ruling coalition. If, they win quite substantial number of seats, yeah.
Okay. And, so I want to talk about just one issue that everybody has always been dealing with, statelessness and undocumented migration. Okay. How do you think, I don't want to ask you why it's not solved, whatever, because we all know it's a difficult situation. But how do you think will the political parties put forward in the campaigns?
Well, it depends on what ideological preference those parties would take. Some so-called Sabah for Sabahan parties,
Yes.
they might say, chase them all back to Philippines or Indonesia and so on. That's, frankly speaking, not a very realistic proposition.
Yes.
But in terms of campaign, sometimes
It works, right?
it sounds good, right? But somehow you need to so-called regularize
Okay.
this extremely substantial group of people in Sabah. We are talking about, let's say, 1/3 of the Sabah
Yes.
population. It's not a very small amount.
Yeah.
I mean, a small number. And shall we say, the human resources of Sabah also depends tremendously on these people.
Yeah.
Those working in the estates, those working sometimes in the households, in the coffee shops, and
Yes.
so on. Whether legally or illegally, that's another question.
Yes.
But they do work.
Yes.
So without them, I think Sabah
Yeah.
economy would suffer greatly as well. So how do you regularize these people? I think for one thing, you can go around the world. I mean, not sending another high-powered delegation,
Yeah.
but I mean, even by doing internet research, right?
Yeah.
You can see how other countries
Can emulate
emulate these sort of
solutions,
problems, right? I mean, ranging from the Middle East
Yeah.
to South America, how do they solve this problem? Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's quite okay. But so we met a few days ago and you said you heard 4 different theories already for Sabah. Could you share with us? Because I really want to know, because you told me you'll tell me today.
There's various versions
Yeah.
of what's going to happen in Sabah. Some would say Warisan will come back to power,
Okay.
perhaps at the head of another ruling coalition.
Okay.
Some would say the current GIS is very strong. They will still lead the government. Then there were those who are rooting for AMNO and
Okay.
for BN. And there's one version which I heard, which is very interesting, that PH could lead the next state.
Wow, that's very
government.
interesting.
I think that's slightly tall order
Okay.
because PH nowadays, I think PH mostly in Sabah, it's PK and DAP, right?
Yes.
So with DAP's, let's say 6 or 7 seats, PKR, I don't know, 4 or 5 seats, how you then lead the state government? You need to put together a ruling coalition,
Yeah.
but those other parties with more seats than you would say, hey, why not me being
Yes.
the chief minister, right?
Exactly.
So there are various versions being touted nowadays. I think it's also those different parties putting up their different,
Okay.
shall we say, narratives.
For the story. But
yeah.
from your take, right? You're an expert. You're from Sabah.
Yeah.
What's your vision in the state election? What do you see happening?
Again, I think
You really cannot see it right
well,
now?
each major parties, they will win some number of
Okay.
seats. Let's say they are party A, B, C, D, right?
Okay.
So, then it depends. If ABC could put together a coalition with a majority, then they will rule. But how about BCD or CDA or something like that? So all sorts of combinations are possible. Before election, you will hear very loud rhetorics about, oh, I'm totally against that party or that party
Yes.
totally against me.
Yes.
But at election night,
Yes.
I think they would come together, negotiate.
Yeah.
They will become the best of friends if they
Yes.
can form a government.
And then they will
Yeah.
always say, in politics, it's so dynamic.
That's
it's so
right.
dynamic. But you're like
the art of
fighting.
the impossible.
So okay, if like that, what is your hope for the voters? Like, what do you hope? Because you want a better Sabah,
Yeah,
right?
of course. I think number one, since over the last, almost a year now, we have heard a number of scandals.
Yes.
And then now that there's the Zara case, and then voters are also experiencing a lot of, shall we say, infrastructural inconvenience.
Yes.
Water, electricity, roads, and so on. Well, then you should carefully read the manifestos of various parties. Of course, those are promises, but I mean, what
else can you depend on?
do, right? And see which one you think could best address these concerns.
Okay.
And Sabah really needs some development because we really cannot continue like this, constantly struggle. Tomorrow is my birthday.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Happy birthday!
And I'm flying back to KK to
Okay.
celebrate my birthday with my wife,
Okay.
right? but I'm half expecting to go straight from the airport to stay in a hotel instead of in my KK home, because there might or might not be electricity.
Are you
frankly speaking.
serious?
Yeah, of course. So there were times when my wife, I mean, after the plane took off, you know, and then when it landed, my wife told me no electricity at home. We go straight to a hotel, and better check whether that hotel has electricity supply as well. Yeah, of course, otherwise why you go there to stay?
exactly.
So there were at least I don't know, many times, such that one of these hotels automatically upgrade me to a suite and so on, because I stayed so many times. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's so. How do you? Okay. I'm sorry. I live in here. I live in KL. I live in Selangor, and I mean having no electricity cut is because of a problem, a
Yes.
technical problem, not like a scheduled.
Yeah, this is like in South Africa, it's something called like something loading, load shading or something like
Okay.
that. Yeah.
So like, how do you feel when you're in KK? KK is beautiful. I love KK.
Yeah.
I love going to KK, and
This is unconscionable. I mean, I grew up in KK. During my younger years, there were all these electricity blackouts and so on.
Okay.
And now I'm turning 51, and I'm still facing this. Is half a century of sufferings, you know. So I want to see an end to this. Frankly speaking, I cannot tolerate it anymore.
So when you-
and I think this sentiment is shared by many Sabahans.
Yeah.
You know, we grew up there half a century.
what? Okay, tell us like how was it growing up in KK, and when you moved to KL? I mean, when you stayed here, I don't know, you've stayed in Singapore as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, like how do you feel?
Well, a lot of things which you take for granted, right?
Okay.
I mean, like efficient public transport, you know, stable electricity and water.
Yeah.
Well, in Sabah, you cannot take that for granted. You know, even today, with promises of what is this Pemborneo Highway and
Yes.
so on, that has still yet to come to fruition. And because of this so-called construction of Pemborneo highways, a lot of diversions and so on, and road conditions, shall we say, not so nice. So, yeah, I look forward to a day where I could, I don't ask for a lot. I just want a decent infrastructure for
my
Sabah.
God,
Yeah.
that's so hard. How
Yeah.
are we supposed to expect that when there are so many corruption cases being released out?
Yeah,
You know.
that's what I call it, resource curse, because we are so resourceful. So everybody wants to dip their hands into the cookie jars.
So like, you know, a few weeks back, I interviewed Datuk Sri Alexander Nantalingi
From Sarawak.
from Sarawak. So I asked him about the state elections for Sabah, and then he said he kind of like he compared it to Sabah. He compared Sarawak and Sabah together, and he said that the thing about Sabah is there's so much tigers on a hill, where there's no hierarchy. Everybody is in power. Compared to Sabah, where they know the who and who is where. So do you have a similar opinion on that, or is it because people can't be united, or what's the issue? Like, are people just too greedy?
Well, I tend to agree with the last conclusion, isn't
Okay.
it? Because, you have different tigers or many tigers, then all the tigers will try to hunt, right?
Yes.
Well, as opposed to if you have one big tiger,
Yeah.
well, that tiger will also have to hunt.
Yes.
So the concern is the hunting,
Yes.
right? So, I don't know. I mean, if we could have perhaps more hardworking orangutans, you know, then attracting more tourists
Yeah.
and so on. Perhaps
Okay.
it's better than all these crouching tigers.
Oh my
and,
I love your description right now.
sleeping dragons. Or something, right? Yeah.
Okay.
So I really look forward to a day where Sabah could be like Hawaii, could be
Okay.
like Waikiki, could be like Bali and so on, right? These are all the major attractions. According, I think, to one statistics last year, over the past quite a number of years, Sabah received approximately the same number of tourists as, let's say, Bali, right?
Wow, okay.
But you look forward to go to Bali because infrastructure, it's nice, and then it's very culturally oriented. Some of the restaurants, 2 nights ago, I went to a restaurant here in KL. It's a Balinese restaurant, which I try in Bali, and now they are opening up branches in KL, right? I mean, I look forward to a day where Sabah restaurants could also open up branches in, KL and beyond
And
in
Singapore
Indonesia.
and Indonesia.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
that's
that'd
a
be
Sabah
amazing.
I envision.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we need a government who could or which could sort of lead that kind of vision,
Okay.
which could provide that kind of opportunities for us Sabahans to shine. Yeah.
Do you think the leadership, the people in power in Sabah are just too old-fashioned or too traditionalist? I don't want to say the word.
Well, I
don't
think
wanna
preoccupied with politicking. Yeah.
okay, that's
and
the word.
then, and why do you do politicking? Because you want to, attain power,
Yes,
right? You want to attain power in order to do whatever wonderful things you would like to do.
Yeah. So, do you think that they need new faces? Do you think Sabahans need new faces? Do you think they need younger faces? I don't know. Like, is there like
I
all I
think they
see?
need-
Okay, to be honest, when I see Sabah punya government, all I see are pakcik-pakcik yang patutnya dah
Yeah.
retire dah.
I think we need more conscientious faces, and over the years, of course, both the federal and state governments, they send a lot of these youngsters to studies overseas and locally.
Yeah.
And these are very bright people. I met a lot of them in conferences, both in Sabah as well as here in Peninsula.
Yeah.
Sometimes I thought, wow, if these people, even though how young they were, if they could be somehow, I wouldn't say in charge of Sabah,
Okay.
if they could somehow get
Be
themselves
there,
involved
yeah.
in Sabah, how nice that would be. Yeah, I do share a bit of this enthusiasm for younger generation.
Yeah.
To sort of shape Sabah for the better. Yeah.
Do you see like recently Sabah has been in the spotlight for Syed Saddiq working with Bella. They've been going to Sabah, they've been climbing.
Oh yeah,
around it.
because okay.
Because of them.
And if you have Syed Saddiq, Rafizi, Khairi,
Yeah.
Khairi's sidekick, my
Sharil.
good friend of oh, so
Oh my God, you forgot Sharil's name.
and Nick Nasmi
Okay.
and so on, and perhaps some from Sabah and some from Sarawak.
Yeah.
Imagine if they could somehow band together. Forming a political party would be good, but somehow band together and provide a new vision, new leadership for the country and for states such
So
as Sabah.
it's interesting
and so
you
on.
mentioned all these specific names
Yeah.
because they're the people that are seeing, like the young people are seeing this group of people.
Yeah.
But why do you think what's hindering them from working together?
Well, of course, they have been politicians for quite some time, and sometimes, let's say this group of 5 or 6 of them, right? Who is going to lead the group, right? That's it.
Probably KJ lah kan.
That would be quite a question, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
KJ,
Khairi would say, why not me, right?
And then Rafizi be like, no, me.
Yeah. So, but that's politicking. I mean, that's politics, and I hope that's healthy style of politics because they're healthy competitions and so on.
But when you mention those names, right? Like KJ and Sharil are out from UMNO. Rafizi and Nick Nazmi are basically out of PR. They're not out, but out of favor. Shouldn't they just go into Muda in Syed Saddiq's party since Syed Saddiq already has
Well, then
a party?
Syed Saddiq would say, very nice, so you guys will be all under me, right?
Yeah, exactly. What do you think? Do you think that then, if that way, Muda has to restructure themselves or how?
Ideally, these are all my good friends, and I hope them the best of luck for both Malaysia and for my beloved state of Sabah.
Yeah.
Of course, you need also a few faces from Sabah
Yeah,
to complement them. Well, I think we stray a bit from the topic, but I think no, it's okay for me.
Okay.
I mean, as I look at Malaysia, outside of Malaysia, people respect us a lot.
Okay.
I mean, especially recently after we mediated the Thai-Cambodia conflict, right?
Yes.
Even no less than Donald Trump himself, expressed an interest to come to Malaysia and perhaps do a summit with all the wonderful leaders of the world, right?
Yeah.
Hey, that's unheard of, you see.
Okay.
Remember his first term, totally neglecting Southeast Asia,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And this time he is taking the initiative
Yes.
to have a closer look here. And I think that we are doing well in that sense in the eyes of the international community. But domestically, frankly speaking, I think we are quite a mess, both politically as well as economically. Because despite some of these growing growth numbers, if you ask anybody on the streets, very seldom do you hear very positive answers,
Yes,
right?
yes.
It's like, I'm feeling the vibes, I'm
Yeah,
really
yeah,
feeling the
yeah.
growth. You don't hear that.
No.
It's in Chinese community, your business so susah, right?
Okay.
And then you go to some other communities, livelihood so susah, you know, right? So money not enough, prices are too high.
Yes.
So you know, you don't feel like our population is feeling the fruits of those so-called growth.
Yes.
So how do we do that? How do we make sure people could participate more? Here, of course, in West Malaysia, you have more, shall we say, conditions for doing that, right? Especially in Klang Valley. And well, I think you need to continue to do that, and hopefully in the process, Sabah could partake a little bit as well. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. So before we end today, I need your predictions.
Well, I think you will see a coalition government in
Okay.
Sabah on election night. Well, hopefully on election night, but
Not the
perhaps,
next morning.
but I think likely maybe the next morning or a few
Okay.
days afterwards. Yeah.
Okay. But who is going to be the chief minister?
Well, I can really not make a responsible prediction. I can only say I hope that person would, I wouldn't say lead Sabah to new heights and so on.
Too
but
high expectation.
Yeah, that's right. But at least provide ample infrastructure for Sabah so that when I do go back to Sabah, I don't need to worry about staying in a hotel anymore.
Okay. So electricity and water, the most important, and
Yeah.
roads.
Yeah. And roads, yeah.
Electricity, water, and roads.
Roads.
Anything else?
Let's take
Oh,
care of
let's
this
take
thing.
that first.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, for
Yeah.
watching. This is Tasnim from Sina Daily. Make sure you follow all our social media platforms. And this is Dr. O.A. San. He's a Sabahan. He's a political analyst. And he has said what I'm sure everybody is thinking about. See you guys. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you.
The world's unfolding, stories untold. Voices rising and we're breaking the mold. Fearless and bold, we're taking the lead. Empowering minds, that's what we see. Seeing our daily, shining bright. News that's bold, news that's right. Thank you.